Fitzgerald.
Here.
Mrs. Donato. Mrs. Jenkins. Here. Mr. Augustine.
Here.
Mr. Fodor. Mr. Hack.
Here. I need a approval of our agenda as submitted.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The agenda is submitted. It is correctly. Invocation time will be given by Kristen Shute. Nick, please stand and call out the pledge of allegiance.
Almighty and gracious God, we thank you for the freedom in which we live in this nation. As we gather tonight to conduct the business of the city, we pray for your guidance that our words and deeds will be worthy of this freedom and of the benefit to all of our citizens. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion for the minutes from our regular meeting from February 3rd, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins.
Yes.
Mr. Augustine.
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes. This is our public comments from our visitors. We would now like to recognize our visitors. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. When called upon, please use the podium. Clearly state your name and address into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any dialogue must be conducted through me as president of council. All those your comments, questions can be addressed to the council and the administration involved. Anybody else say? Committee report, senior committee.
That's me. So, as you guys are well aware, we have 3 delegates, myself, Lori Donello, and Jim Fodor, who are meeting on a consistent basis with the Senior Center administration and board to ensure that we are providing them support as they work through a transitional period. At the last meeting, we had more of a discussion about the village concept that they are pursuing. They had a public hearing that sounds like it was fairly well received. And then we had our meeting with them to just learn more about the village and where they see that concept going. And then today was the first stakeholders meeting for that process also. And that was well attended by leaders in the region. So right now, what they're looking at is a 5 to 7 mile radius program called The Village, which is able to be Googled if you guys haven't had a chance to look at that. But we will continue to meet with them, I believe quarterly. We already have meetings set up, and we'll continue to support them in this venture.
Thank you. Housing task force.
Do we want to take a report when we get to the legislation on this? Doug, what do you think? If we're going to discuss the legislation, should we just do?
We talked about yard, garage, and porch sales, which will be discussed in the first piece of legislation.
Yeah, so we'll defer the report until the first ordinance comes up.
Jed.
Christine's not here.
All right. And economic development.
It's agenda.
Okay, tonight we have our John F. Clare Award, and I'd like to, Painesville United Methodist Church is the winner for the award. Painesville City Council is proud to announce the 2020 John F. Clare Economic Development Award to the United Methodist Church and Pastor Jan Yendel. John Clare, although not born in the city of Painesville, fully embraced his adopted city. John was truly a community leader and a visionary. He believed in the city of Painesville was and could be much more than believed. John delighted in setting his big goals and turned accomplishments down. It was his never take no for an answer attitude that was helped with retention and expansion of our business community. It was John Clare's leadership vision, novel approach, and commitment to the growth of the city of Painesville that inspired the John F. Clare Economic Development Award. We would like to present this award to the Painesville United Methodist Church for their support and dedication to always promoting Painesville in a positive manner and encouraging people and guests to visit the city. The church's involvement under Pastor Jan has created a group known as People of Painesville Community Action Network, POPCAN. This group of volunteers provides support as farmers market and weekly basis, DPO monthly events, and other community-based events throughout the city. They are creating a strong growth partnership that focuses on building a better future with the city of Painesville. For these reasons, we'd like to recognize United Methodist Church and Pastor Jan as the 2020 John F. Clare Award recipient. And we also have Jan Clare and her son John here to help present this award.
On behalf of John Clare, it's an honor to present you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, please. You have 3 minutes.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Department of Economic Development and certainly the Clare family. And, I brought with me some of the greatest volunteers in the world over here and who are actively involved in the market and the Grill on the Hill and soup kitchen, or the food pantry, and the many ways that the church has served the community. It's been our pleasure, our privilege, and our honor to be a part of the Painesville community and to work hard to make it a better place. So I thank you all very, very much, and this belongs to the whole church.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move into our legislation. If you wish to comment on legislation, please request to do so at this time. Those making such a request will be called upon after the reading. Any dialogue must be conducted through as the president of council. Although your comments or questions will be addressed to the council, the administration, or both. When called upon, please use the podium. Remember, clearly state your name and address into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we have ordinance number 1. Yes. Ordinance number 2. Ordinance number 3. Ordinance number 4. Ordinance number 5. Resolution number 6. Resolution number 7. Resolution number 8. And since we're limited on council people, we're going to have to leave everything on first reading. So ordinance number 1.
An ordinance amending section 735.10 in its entirety of the Painesville Code of Land Standing relating to the registration of garage, yard, and porch sales and declaring an emergency.
That's it.
The city initially,
Good. Sorry.
Right.
Very clean. Thank you.
Sorry, Ray Stronach, 346 Bridgewood, Painesville. Mr. President, I'm pleased to see that the city is thinking about revising the ordinance on the registration of garage, yard, and porch sales. While I have no problem with garage or yard sales in general, I can tell you I've had some concerns about the garage sales in Huntley Park from a safety issue for some time. Over the last several years, the 3 to 4 day Huntley Park annual garage sale, traffic has been a nightmare. Parking on both sides of the street on Elizabeth, and that's a no parking street, and on other streets in Huntley Park. The entrance as well as Greenfield have been a choke point during the sales. Had an ambulance been required in the past, in my opinion, it would have been difficult for them to get in and out of the community. I also heard that last year the auxiliary police person had quite a time in Posey Park keeping traffic somewhat under control and was quite busy working the site. I'm sure the chief can add to that. So I support the improvements suggested in this ordinance except for one point. And that point is this. I believe the cost for administration, police, and signs should be included in the registration fee. Right now, as I understand it, as proposed, the fee is zero, and somehow police costs will be charged in some seemingly undefined way. Suffice it to say, I don't think the ordinance is clear enough relative to administrative and police costs. By putting the police administrative costs as part of the registration, the city should be able to recover their costs for garage sales, at the same time define the cost to residents who want to have a garage sale by providing the fee costs up front. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
The legislation or the ordinance before you is a revision to the registration of garage, yard, and porch sales. The Housing Task Force, this item was referred to the Housing Task Force, and the Housing Task Force met on February 5th to discuss the proposed changes to the legislation. One of the reasons that we were looking at this is the same reason that Mr. Sternot mentioned, was safety and congestion concerns within some of our neighborhoods. When we have more than a certain number of garage sales, it can back up the entire neighborhood, which affects the entire area. So we wanted to propose something that would take a look at that and address some of those concerns. I'll briefly go through some of the proposed changes. One, it would require registration of any garage, yard, and porch sale. It establishes criteria within the application that you have to provide. If registration is sought for 3 or more garage, yard, or porch sales conducted at the same time on a street or within a development or area, they would be required to provide additional information and identify those yard sales that would be occurring around them. It also provides for a 14-day advanced registration of the event, so it gives the city manager or designee an opportunity to review that application and determine if an off-duty police officer would be required. So any event with more than 3 garage sales potentially in an area would require a review to determine whether an off-duty police officer would be required to adequately manage traffic and congestion. They would be allowed 3 events per calendar year. That's a change. Currently, they're allowed 4 events. They could be held, the 3 events could be held on a total of 3 consecutive days. So the longest that you could hold it is 3 consecutive days, which is true of our existing ordinance right now. As I said, if there's 3 or more events, the city manager would evaluate it based on a variety of factors that the Housing Task Force recommended. For example, the number of sales being proposed would be one of the things that they would look at, the proximity of the sales to one another, whether we've had prior issues on that street, area, or subdivision, the potential for traffic issues due to high traffic volume concerns. So we would have a criteria that we would look at in evaluating that and making a determination whether a police officer would be required. If it's determined that a police officer is required, they have to show that they've contacted the police department and made arrangements for an off-duty police officer prior to being approved. That's why we extended the application period to 14 days so that they have an opportunity to do that. If they do not want to hire an off-duty police officer because they only have 2 sales and they were the third, then they have the opportunity to move it to a different weekend or hire the off-duty police officer. Also, as Mr. Sturmont said, there are no fees, but they would also be responsible for any other associated costs with the garage sale. For example, if we need Public Works to put out cones and things of that nature, they would have to pay for the cost of having the Public Works Department come out, put up cones, put up no parking signs, those types of things, or any cost associated with that. Those are the main changes recommended within the ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions or comments?
Well, so I'll comment. As a member of the Housing Task Force, I can say that we had a very productive conversation around the different changes and how we came to the conclusions for those changes. Ultimately, we wanted to extend the number of days that they had to register prior to the event because we are adding in an administrative piece to this, and we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of time for review and organization and things like that. We did kind of generalize the information more than was originally presented to us to allow the administration discretion when it comes to determining whether or not security and cones and all this other stuff is necessary. And we also talked about just about every street in the city, whether or not it would affect it. And ultimately, we decided pretty much everywhere in the city, because the streets are narrow, because we don't have a lot of on-street parking, short driveways, things like that, that multiple garage sales in a dense area could be detrimental to the safety of those that live there. I think that's it. We talked about, one of the things we did talk about, I know we've come back to Heisley Park because that is one of the largest garage sales in the community, and we talked about the possibility of that maybe being an HOA regulation. And again, we came back to the fact that anywhere in the city that this could occur, it would be a problem, not just in Heisley Park, but places like Liberty Greens also. And then lastly, the fee, there was a fee previously, correct, Doug?
No, there was no fee.
Okay. We decided not to add a fee, even though we talked about it needing more oversight in the first year, because we wanted to see how many people or how many situations might fall under this category and whether or not a fee would be necessary in the future. So the Housing Task Force has put it on their agenda to come back after a season of garage sales to determine whether or not a proposed fee would be appropriate. I think did I cover all the major points?
That covers everything.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Doug, on section I, there, the last one, it says that it's an unclassified misdemeanor punishable by fine to exceed $500, so that means the minimum fine is $500 or upwards? Or should be not to exceed? That's kind of what I was thinking.
So that will be corrected before the next meetings.
All right, that's all.
any other questions? Great, thank you, Doug. Ordinance number 2, first reading.
An ordinance establishing a schedule of fees for reviews, approvals, and other procedures pertaining to the administration and enforcement relating to the Unified Development Code of the City of Painesville and declaring an emergency.
Good evening. This ordinance is to establish a schedule of fees for the reviews for our zoning code. In October of 2019, City Council passed the Unified Development Code, and as our ordinance, and currently we have no fees. Section 1105.05 fees stated that council shall by ordinance establish a schedule of fees for reviews, approvals, and other procedures. So the previous fee schedule found in the zoning code has been incorporated into this new language. However, a number of the items have been added or modified. Added fees include siding, roofing, waterproofing, and windows, as our UDC includes appearance standards now for single-family dwellings. The fees for signs had been handled under the building code, which we don't have anymore. So now the fee structure has been changed. It was a $5 basic fee with 20 cents per square foot. We've changed that to a flat fee for signs depending on the size. Fences were changed from a lineal foot calculation to a flat fee. And the other changes include increasing fees for planning commission and BZA applications to cover the cost of legal advertising and postage. The city's fees were compared to surrounding areas to be sure that there were no major discrepancies.
Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll do this on first reading. Ordinance number 3, first reading.
An ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and expenditures of the city of Painesville, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020, and amending the original appropriations for the 2020 operating budget and declaring an emergency.
This is for a 2020 budget increase. The large one is requesting a new 100-foot ladder truck fire engine that will cost over $1.3 million. We're also requesting to change the part-time current economic development secretary to a full-time secretary that will be split between economic development and planning, and that's going to be roughly a $19,000 increase. We also want to promote a policeman to a sergeant. That would cost roughly $5,000. And then also at the Store Street building, unfortunately, we're having some heating issues. This is going to cost $44,000. However, it's not going to add any additional money to the budget because we're going to reduce electrics and public works budget by $44,000. So it'll be a net effect of zero on that.
Any questions, comments? We'll leave this on first reading. Ordinance number 4, first reading.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of $1 million notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of a new fire pumper truck together with the necessary appurtenances thereto and declaring an emergency.
This is for a $1 million note issuance to pay for the new fire truck that we just requested. It'll be paid off in 14 years, and after we pay down roughly $500,000 on this issuance, the city will be paying $60,000 a year for 14 years.
Any questions, comments? We'll leave this on first reading. Resolution number 6, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the rehabilitation of various sanitary and storm sewers and declaring an emergency.
So the city televised the sanitary and storm sewers on Button, Skinner, Watson, Casement, and West Washington Street. There are some repairs that need to be made and sections of pipe that need to be lined. So we did put it in the budget to do these repairs. And that's what the decision is for.
Any questions or comments? All right, we'll leave number 5 on first reading. Resolution number 6, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to advertise for bids and enter into a contract including any and all ensuing change orders with the lowest and best bidder for the asphalt resurfacing of Avenue and Watson Street and declaring an emergency.
So Casement Avenue has a pavement condition rating of 62.2, which is poor condition, from Main Street to the East Fork line. The condition rating was done in 2019. Casement Avenue was last resurfaced in 2001. And as part of this project, we will be paving a portion of the county section of Casement Avenue. And we are working on an agreement with the county that they will pay for their section of the roadway. Watson Street has a pavement condition rating of 54.8 for condition. Jackson Street. The condition rating was done in 2019, and Watson Street was last resurfaced in 1988, and last year they replaced the water line. So we are resurfacing after the water line is replaced.
Any questions or comments? I will leave that on first reading. Resolution number 7, first reading.
A resolution appointing a community reinvestment area housing council for the city of Painesville's community reinvestment area number 5 as created in previously adopted resolution number 42-18.
We've gone back to review all details related to CRA area number 5 and to ensure that resolution 4218, which created CRA area number 5, conforms with the Ohio Revised Code, section 373569. We are proposing this legislation to appoint a community reinvestment area housing council for the area. The housing council is required by the Ohio Revised Code, requires the council be composed of 2 members appointed by the city manager, 2 members appointed by Painesville City Council, 1 member appointed by the city's planning commission, and the majority of the foregoing members then shall appoint 2 additional members who shall be residents of the city of Painesville. This resolution would have met all the criteria required for CRA area number 5 by the Ohio Revised Code and the State of Ohio Development Services Agency.
Questions or comments? Thank you. We'll do that on first reading. Resolution number 8, first reading.
A resolution authorizing and directing the city manager to accept a one-time grant from the Lake County Board of Commissioners for the 2020 Lake County Road Improvement and Economic Development Grant and declaring an emergency.
The Lake County Commissioners passed a resolution on December 19, 2019, to establishing the County Board of Commissioners Lake County Road Improvement and Economic Development Grant Program for 2020. The county engineer had reached out to ask if he could partner on the resurfacing of Casement Avenue, since part of the project is in Painesville and the rest is in the county. This was not originally slated for 2020, and the one-time grant will be used to fund the resurfacing of the city's portion of Casement Avenue. The city's portion of the costs are estimated to be $108,801, but the total project cost is $206,000. The one-time grant from the Lake County Commissioners for the 2020 Lake County Road Improvement and Economic Development grant is $97,198.90. The remaining funds will be paid for out of the general capital fund.
This will also stay on first reading. Thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, none. Department presentation, electric department.
Can't have a presentation. Okay. Good evening. I'm here to bring news from the electric department. I promise not to be shocking, but it'll be current. Okay.
Me, you're cooking it and it's not. Did you turn it on?
It's on.
I'll show it.
There we go. Shocking. So what's new? What I'd like to talk about tonight is the call center efficiency smart program, touch on a little bit on the AMI program, and the project for the summer, which will be the H10 circuit extension. First up will be the call center.
Is it not working? I'll just click it.
Okay.
Just tell me when.
Okay. The call center we've entered into a contract with and working with Lake County Telecom. We were able to get it up and running and right at the end of the year. We've only had, thankfully, one time that we've had to use it where we had an outage that required us to switch over to it. So we're pleasantly surprised it worked very well. And the flood of calls and the phone ringing constantly was removed, and we were able to handle the outage. And we got fairly good response, positive response, and it worked out really well. So far so good for the call center. And I don't know whether it's because we signed the contract, but the outages have been down. So I'll take it. Next up is the Efficiency Smart program. The program is up. We are also running with that. We've had some small inroads and selling of the LEDs, so we had a little bit of help there. The program rep from Efficiency Smart, Tom Coyle, has been working with Kathy to meet and greet some of our bigger customers. And it continues, we're continuing to get the word out about the program and its benefits, and hoping for some more inroads, especially with some of our bigger customers. In fact, we had a call today that we're going to switch over to Efficiency Smart for an energy audit on some of our smaller customers, our medium-sized commercial customers. Next up, AMI project. Here we are. Meters have been ordered. The next up is the planning stage, where we are going to lay out the timeline. We were talking just today about how the program has kind of been on everybody's, not on everybody's mind, but we've had in the works for a while, and now that the meters have been ordered, we got an email that they're coming in April or May. So at this point, we would like that. We're going to have a meeting working out with AMP. I'm going to be going down to the board meeting tomorrow and meeting with the guys from the AMI project. Set up a meeting in the coming weeks that we can set up and establish some of our communication protocols and the timeline, so we can get everybody to say, hey, remember we talked about AMI, we're going to come up and be changing the meter out, so don't be alarmed, it's just us. And so that work is on the way, and at the same time, we're working with Andy in the utility office to get the software, the billing software up, so that we can merge the two, so that we can have the full benefits of both the AMI efficient meters and the ability to offer our customers a lot of benefits based on that efficiencies. Okay? And then we get to H10 circuit extension. This is a system improvement project that's been ongoing or planned for a bit. The circuit H10 right now comes out of our Richmond sub, and it doesn't pick up any load until it crosses over Route 44 and goes into the Brookstone, Cobblestone area. In the meantime, Shamrock comes down into Brookstone and is on an older circuit H4, which is a little bit more loaded up. But with the new addition of Encore Estates, Clover Development, and Heisman Park, what we're doing is we're just balancing load. We're shifting load off of the older H4 circuit and bringing H10 up Shamrock by crossing over the bridge. The infrastructure is already in place when the road was put in, so we're just going to be pulling cable and just diverting load over to pick up Heisley, Encore, Clover Development, and a little bit of Jackson, which system-wide, you may not appreciate this, but I will. In the summertime, it balances load better, and with H10 over there, we should have a little bit more reliability for the residents in Heisman Park, as well as be able to handle the increased number of houses in Encore and the Clover Development. So with that, I'll give you a little here's the map. If you can see up in the center over, you can see the little circle there, which I affectionately call Randy's Roundabout, because his station is right up there. That's where we'll be crossing over. That's where H10 exists now, and then it will go down Brookstone, and you can see the two developments there. And then we have a ways with.
I believe it.
Okay. Can give you a better example there, Lee. So this is the project we talked before about, where we're coming over to pick up on Heisley. Okay, right here is right now here's 44, and H10 comes across right about to here. It comes over and it just picks up this little area right in here. What we're planning to do is all this underground, and here's the bridge over the railroad tracks, has already been in. So all we have to really do is connect, tie up into here. We'll pull our cable underground up to Jackson, where we already are with H4. This is the area of Encore Estates is where they're going to go in. Heisley's right here, and Clover's going to come over here. So we're just all, in the summer, we're going to have to get over to here, just pulling cable, And then we'll have, H10 will be able to take over these developments. And now there's a assisted living center here now. This is an older picture, but all this will be on H10. So that's our summertime project. So with that, I will close the presentation with a main thank you. And I ask if there's any questions.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, how long do you think it's gonna take for a residential customer to have one of these new meters?
The meters, the EMI, those are the first ones that are gonna be arriving, and I want to say with the deployment, it's gonna be about, to get everybody, about 20 weeks sometime.
No, I mean, like, how long would power be off at your home? Say?
Oh, that?
Yeah. That quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
With everything,
Famous last words.
I know, but it's typically, what we do is, we'll pull up, people have been notified in the neighborhood that we're coming.
Mhm.
And then we'll pull up on it. It's a knock on the door to make sure anybody's home. If anybody's home, we'll give them a heads up. We're gonna be changing the meter out. And all it will be is they'll pull the ring, pop the meter, and they'll have already done all the paperwork. So they'll know what the old meter number is, what the new meter's going in. So it's a pull and then a push back in. It's a blink.
Wow. That easy.
Yeah, on residential. On the commercial, we're gonna have to work with them to maybe, affect an outage, or it'll be a little bit longer on the commercial one, but residential goes fairly quickly, given that everything is good with the meter socket and all that, so it should be very easy.
So power might be out for a minute or two.
It shouldn't.
Shouldn't be out?
It should be it should be fairly quick.
Okay. Thanks.
Actually, this last one.
Yeah. In theory.
Yeah, theoretically, they shouldn't even go. Oh,
I
okay.
may have asked this before. How have we communicated the availability of this program to our residential members, consumers, and users?
The efficiency
The
smart.
efficiency smart, yeah.
There's been some flyers and stuff, I believe, at the utility office, Kathy, and then it's been on the website. It's just beginning.
Okay.
We have to get out better, actually, because they just now have reached a couple of stores that will be selling the LEDs, and that word's getting out, and then it's slowly building, but it needs more information, really.
Who is currently selling the LEDs?
It's in Painesville Furniture, and then also,
The market.
the La Mexicana. And we're still looking for those. And I believe the marketing materials, they were planning to get additional marketing materials out to us.
Right, because the Efficiency Smart itself changed some of their marketing. They changed the name of some of the programs, so there was like a gap between when they first started and what the new stuff came out.
But the web-based programs.
And Monica, this is one for you. Is it safe to assume that our customer service individuals in our utility department are trained to communicate this information when they get concerns about their bills or anything like that?
To send them off to Efficiency Smart?
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
And it's also on the utility bills too. There's a message about the
Yeah, there's a
program.
little one.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. Administrator reports, law director, city manager, clerk of council.
The next regular council meeting will be held Monday, March 2nd at 7:30. There will be a finance work session March 16th at 6 p.m. before the March 16th council meeting. Lake Erie College is holding a Learn to Cook for kids ages 10 to 14 on March 12th, starting at 6 p.m. Lake Erie College is also holding a March Madness Skills Zone on March 21st from 1 to 3. And it's already time for Breakfast with the Bunny and the Easter egg hunt, which is April 4th, starting at 8:30. That's it.
Thank you. Closing comments, Nick?
Paul, before we do closing comments, can I make a motion to excuse Councilwoman Maureen Mel from tonight's meeting?
Any other excuses?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Christine Chu from tonight's meeting.
I'll make a motion to excuse Jim Fodor.
Can we do it all in one motion?
Sure. Write it together.
Yeah.
And one person made that motion?
I did it.
We just helped.
A second.
Second.
All right, thank you. Okay,
All those in favor?
Nick, yes, aye, yeah. No, start. Opposed, abstaining.
I really do need all this to approve.
Aye.
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 Okay, closing comments.
None at this time.
Todd?
I'm good, thanks, Paul.
Hey, it's Red Raider season. Please support our Red Raider basketball team by showing up to Friday's game at 6 o'clock for the JV. Varsity's at 7:30. What?
Nick.
Yeah, I helped.
Aww.
No, I should see it. I just wanted to congratulate Jan and United Methodist Church and the volunteers for winning their awards this evening. Also, I'd like to give a quick update on the Downtown Batesville Organization Board of Director meeting. Our first meeting was, for this 2020 year, was January 29th. Not too much happened, but we had a couple committee report updates. Economic Vitality, they've been accepting applications for Art and Art and Farm and Fleet, and that's all underway. On the design committee for the Founders Day 2020, they had a goal of $2,000 for that event, and they actually, after expenses, came out with $2,200, so they came out above what their goal was for funds raising that for that event. On promotions, February first Friday was the I Love Downtown Painesville First Friday, and it was also the soft opening of the local flavors, which is on State Street. Starfish and Coffee will have live music every first Friday, and the Princess Theme First Friday will be moved to May to accommodate the dance studio schedule. Our executive director gave her first report to the board. She's just getting settled into her new role and has been attending various local events and making connections with local businesses, nonprofits, and residents in an attempt to strengthen relationships in the community. She gave us a list of her goals moving forward, which include to focus on structure of the organization, to raise our volunteer base, to build relationships within the community, and to create a succession plan for future transitions within the organization. And that's all.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right, thought it'd be tough for Jim.
No.
Okay, again, the Red Raiders and basketball team, which they won their division. Their game is Friday and Saturday. They're playing Riverside on Saturday. And at this point, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, start.